Jeremy Lightner is a prosecutor at the District Attorney's Office who is running for a judgeship on the Court of Common Pleas. As a candidate for this position, he will appear on both the Democratic and Republican ballots in the primary. I'm very grateful he's here today to speak to my listeners. Jeremy is the Chief Deputy in charge of the Trial Division and has been there for 11 years. He predominantly handles murders, shootings, and other violent crimes in the city and has done over 100 trials. Jeremy was born and raised in Erie and lives in the West Bayfront neighborhood with his wife and son. Welcome, Jeremy, to the podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me.
I'm very excited to have you. Just to start us off, can you tell me a little bit about your background, why you wanted to become a lawyer, where you attended law school, what type of law you practice?
Yeah, when I chose college because I was an athlete, and I went to play football at a low level, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. And then I took I ended up being a literature major, an English major.
Okay.
So I was really into that stuff. And then I took a law and literature class when I was like a junior about how because we were kind of getting in my English classes kind of high level stuff about why not so much art, but like philosophy is kind of what we're getting into. And then the law and applied it to like the legal realm philosophy of why society works the way it does, and it was fascinating. And from that point, I decided I was gonna go to law school. I went to the University of Illinois for law school in Champaign. It's the school in the Big Ten, and was there for 3 years. When I was there, I actually wanted to be an environmental lawyer, but I did not like environmental law, I found. And then I actually came back in 2012 when I graduated, and I wanted to be a public defender.
Okay.
But they weren't hiring. I got a job in the courthouse, clerking for Judge Connolly, and then I got hired by the DA's office in 2014.
Okay.
So that's kind of the background of how I ended up there.
Nice. And I mean, you're a prosecutor. How did that path kind of come about from your first job?
So it's interesting. I was in a trial. So Judge Connolly does criminal and civil stuff.
Okay.
So I was writing a lot of brief, helping him do it and researching and that sort of stuff. But you also sit through the courtroom. Every hearing in his courtroom, I sat through, watched how he handled it, and watched how the attorneys handled it, and watched what happened.
Okay. It
was pretty cool. It was as a learning experience to really see how the system works in Erie County, because I was like anybody else. I just graduated law school. I didn't know. But when I came in, there was a shooting case that I dealt with that handled. It was pretty clear to me that the person had done it. Now, my opinion didn't matter. I didn't say a word about it. But I realized that I watched the defense attorney do a good job, fight for his client, and then the person was found not guilty, even though I thought the evidence could have been presented better by the DA's office.
Yeah.
And then about 2 or 3 months later, a shooting occurred, and that person who had been found not guilty had shot the person.
Oh, okay.
Shot another person, somebody, and was back in court. And I remember seeing that family and kind of saying, "We've really failed that family." Like this, I in my opinion, and the jury found it one way, and I got no fault with that.
Yeah.
But the system, from law enforcement's point of view, kind of failed that person or that family, and that really pivoted me. And then I never really thought about being a prosecutor, and that's how I ended up when they called, because they were hiring. It was 2012. Not many people were hiring when they called me. I took the job pretty quickly.
Okay. I mean, so a sense of duty, it sounds like.
Yeah, it was. Well, I think I'm not here to beat around the bush. I'm a Democrat. I've been a lifelong Democrat.
Yeah.
Especially when I was younger, I had a lot of liberal leanings. And you walk into a system and you expect it's going to be the criminal justice system is bad for inner city communities.
Yeah. And
it is on some levels, because they don't get good results in the big cases.
Yeah.
You see, like, I went to Fairview High School.
Okay.
If there's a murder in Fairview, that's going to be pretty aggressively prosecuted, and it's going to be taken care of. And I realize that I get worried sometimes that the ones in the city, the victims in the city, don't get the same shake. If someone's shooting bullets down your street, that is unacceptable no matter what neighborhood you live in.
Right.
But I found that the poorer neighborhoods weren't getting the same level of care. Not that they weren't, but I wanted to make sure that they did get it.
Yeah.
And that was kind of my goals when I took the job. So that played a huge role in me wanting to do it.
Awesome. Great. It's makes a lot of sense. kind of equity in how people are handled. You're running for a judgeship on the Court of Common Pleas.
Yes.
There's only 4 states in the country, Pennsylvania, Ohio, South Carolina, and Delaware, that actually have a Court of Common Pleas. Can you kind of explain what that is?
Yeah, well, so I think, first of all, the reason that you have the Court of Common Pleas like that is those are all, I think, the original 13 colonies.
Yeah.
Because that's what they called it way back when. But really, I don't even say common pleas when I'm like out in a campaign thing.
Yeah.
I say I'm running for countywide judge that sits down at the courthouse.
Yeah.
Because that's what it is. We have a couple tiers here in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
We have district judges. They're like different sections of the city or different boroughs in the county.
Okay.
And then there's common pleas judge. There's 9 in Erie County.
Yep.
The spot that I'm running for is one of those 9 spots.
Okay.
And then there's the Commonwealth Court, Superior Court, and the Supreme Court. So
Okay.
those 3 the last 3 I listed are all appeals. There's different paths cases can take that they go to. But what common pleas does is that's the judge. They're going to be deciding how at a jury trial, whether it's a slip and fall or whether it's a crime or things of that nature. They're going to be the ones overseeing it. They're also going to be the ones handling the run-of-the-mill standard hearings, cases that you get, landlord-tenant stuff if it rises above a certain level in terms of financial stuff. So that is it's the lowest level, but it's the one that the jury is in. When the jury's in the courtroom, they're the judge that oversee it, and it's the lowest level that everyone has to be an attorney. Some of the DJs don't have to be attorneys. When DJ, I say district judge, not disc jockey. When I started, that's
they
what
don't
I
have
thought
to be attorneys either.
No,
I would think,
But so that's the level that's common pleas. So they're all going to be every common pleas judge sits in a courtroom at the courthouse and has their cases come before them.
Okay. And what motivated you to run for this seat? I mean, you're a prosecutor and you're running for it's a different kind of job.
Yeah. So it was first of all, one of the motivations was I did not know how much work campaigning was going to be. So that is, if I would have known that, no, I enjoy it, but the immense amount of work you put in to try to put your best foot forward is a big thing. But what it really is I've been handling these serious cases. I handle the murders, the stabbings, the shootings, stuff like that. And you handle that for a long enough time, you end up, you bring people justice.
Yeah.
And so you handle a case. I handled the murder of a 7-year-old that went to trial and sentencing last year. And the family was very happy. I believe they're happy with how law enforcement handled it, how I handled it.
Yeah.
And that's nice, but they're still a devastated family that is going to recover. And I tell them that every time we talk to them about it, like that this isn't going to define them, but it's still an immensely sad thing. And then when you go get them justice, I'm looking over at the other people's family, the guy who did it's family, and those people did nothing wrong, and they're devastated too. Yeah. And it's just there's so much sadness in that role, and that role needs to be done. But I want to go into these autopsies and seeing these people on these tables. Once we're there, we've already lost as a society.
Yeah.
And I think I want to be able to use my skills to get to try to, and I can't say what I'm going to do or anything like that. I'm not here to say that.
Right.
But to use those skills, because crime is just one small portion of our society, and to play a bigger role in bigger parts of it. That is why I think I have put in the time, and I did not know, as many of us did not. When I was 20, I would have loved. When I was 20, I wanted to be an NFL football player, but I didn't know what skills I was going to have as I matured. And I have a lot of skills that I can bring to the table to contribute to making good decisions for our society and getting it to be a better place.
Absolutely. What are some of the biggest lessons that you have learned as a prosecutor throughout your career, and how do you think that those years of experience will play into a role in as a judge?
I think the biggest lesson you learn is you do not know when you sign up for this job. When you become an attorney, you're like, all right, I got a client. I'm going to fight for that client. That makes sense. No complicated thing there. When you get hired as a prosecutor, you represent the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania includes everyone in Pennsylvania, including the person you're charging.
Yeah.
And so you can't walk in, win a case for your client, burn the courthouse down. Not your problem. You did your ethical duty. You have to go in and make sound decisions on what is best for the community, and that community includes the individuals you're dealing with who maybe have done something wrong. And that weighing is a thing that you have to do as a prosecutor. It's 12:30 now. I've done it 15 times this morning.
Yeah.
You have to make this weighing of what is the appropriate resolution, not seeking to just punish because you can punish,
Yeah.
and not seeking, this isn't a big deal because maybe this victim isn't communicating clearly. It's a big deal because of the crime that occurred. And so the takeaway was you have to weigh everything, and no one's, I don't care, the smartest person on earth isn't going to get every decision right.
Right.
But you have to have a good weighing and decision-making process. And I think that's what I've realized you need and that I've developed over the course of my career, because I have to if I'm getting decisions wrong, people are going to know about it.
Right.
If people that are supposed to, morally in the community, if they end up in jail, and the people that are supposed to be in jail end up in the community, the society's not working right.
Yeah.
And so you have to get those decisions right. And I think that is the biggest thing. My takeaway from my time prosecuting is not so much convincing a jury of something, but making the right decisions beforehand so your goals are correct.
Yeah, that makes sense. And if you were to be elected judge, what would you do to implement a high standard of ethics and nonpartisanship in this role? I mean, you mentioned that you've been a registered Democrat since you were 18, but this is it's a largely nonpartisan role, which will lead into my next question.
Yeah. Well, I think the simplest way to say that is every attorney, we have ethical standards.
Yes.
Every attorney that you have ever dealt with has ethical standards. Prosecutors, it's frustrating at times. We have a higher ethical standard than every other attorney because we can take away people's freedoms.
Yep.
And, coworkers complain, or sometimes police officers complain, why are the standards so high for us? Well, that's because people in our position in the past have cheated, abused those responsibilities. They've done stuff they shouldn't do. So because those people were jerks, we have to jump through all these hoops, which is just part of the job. But as part of that, you have to behave in a certain way at all times. You can't say, well, can I gray area this one through and say, look, I'm good? No, as a prosecutor, there is no gray area. There's so many rules we have to follow, and our ethical standard, case law tells it, we have to go to these trainings all the time to remind us. I just got stuff this week reminding us, your standard's higher than defense attorneys. And, as a competitive person, I'm like, that sucks. But as a human being in our society, that's completely appropriate.
Yeah.
And I have some pride that no matter what I do with my career, my standard of ethical responsibility has been raised forever because I've had this job.
Yeah.
And I'm very happy that happened to me. Does it make me not get the result I want sometimes? Absolutely, because I have to do certain tasks that if I didn't want to do them, I could get away without doing them and no one would notice.
Yeah.
I have a responsibility to do them.
Yeah.
And so that level of ethical decision making, that will carry the day in every decision I make. And then to swing back to the partisan stuff, which makes the question an appropriate one.
Yeah.
But it's just like it doesn't compute for me because I would never even begin to think about what's going on and what party or what type of people I'm dealing with or anything like that.
Yeah. So it really just boils down to doing the right thing because you have to do the right thing.
Yeah, first of all, I think I'm a person who would do the right thing no matter what.
Yeah.
But second, I am proud to have enforced that because I've had a job that's required me to enforce it.
Right. So moving on from that, why is a judgeship for the Court of Common Pleas an elected position? And can you we just kind of talked about the nonpartisanship piece of that.
Yeah.
Why is it elected? Why are we on the ballot?
So I don't actually know the answer to that question, but that's a question I asked myself because I came back. I grew up not worrying about the legal system, and then I came back and I was like, why is this an election? Why is this an elected position? I think the answer is, in our society, we go back and forth with certain things. Should we trust the people that know to make a decision of who should be in a certain position, or should we trust the populace at large?
Yeah.
And that's one of the gridlocks of any society is who is the person choosing. And I'm not here to pretend I have the correct answer to that.
Yeah.
I don't. But I think one of the benefits of having the community at large choose is that it's just going to be it's not going to be elite. It's not going to be the power players that are going to play the end role of who is elected.
Yeah.
I do think the downside of that is that doesn't mean that money and power players aren't still playing a role in all the roles in all parts of the campaign or election. So turn into the nonpartisan aspect of it. when a judge is sitting on a bench, and it could apply to party, it could apply to gender, it could apply to race, it could apply to language being spoken, because that's coming up more and more in courtrooms.
Yeah.
None of that should matter. And I think the philosophy of why your judge and I think school board are the only two that you can run on the R and D side in the primary.
Yep.
And I think the philosophy of that decision comes down to I'm not here to give you my position on some hot button issue here in the community, which I think a lot of politicians at the end of the day have to do.
Right.
We're not supposed to. They don't want us doing that. They want us to not worry about that. They want good decision makers, people of integrity, and people that you can trust with those decisions.
Yeah.
And whether or not you're a good salesman at your policy pieces doesn't really matter. And I think that's why we have that we can run on both sides.
Yeah. And especially since we're dealing with issues of justice, I mean, that also I think makes sense for the DNR piece. You've sort of touched on this a little bit, but what do you view as the role of this court in the lives of citizens?
Well, first and foremost, for any citizen, it's a decision maker that's going to affect their rights, potentially their freedoms, things like that. That is probably the biggest role. But the role of the court at large is to make sure, not on any specific decision, but that they create a world in which a just society is proceeding. Now, what does that look like? It gets complicated. But that is the role. But I think there's a secondary role, because I've seen this, and I've been in courtrooms where this has happened. I think the just result is gotten to, but the people that are experiencing the process walk out of that saying, that was unfair, society doesn't work. And a big role of this is, especially in the political world we're living in right now.
Yeah.
No, when you come into a courthouse, when you come into a courtroom, you're not going to like every decision that comes out of it. Some of my favorite judges, I don't like every decision they give.
Right.
But I know it's going to be a fair shake. I know you're going to be treated fairly. And when my victim or my victim's family walks out, they're going to shake their hand with me. They're going to walk out of the courthouse and they'll be like, look, I didn't love every decision that was made, but that system's kind of working.
Yeah.
And that is a huge responsibility of whoever gets elected. Can you be trusted to make sure that system is working appropriately, and to have people walk away from it saying, I have slightly more faith in society after I was being in there.
So what do you view as the role of this court and this judgeship in the ecosystem of American rule of law? And, there's two pieces here. There's the election piece, and then there's once you're elected. Why should voters trust you to be their candidate? But then once you're elected, how will you uphold the rule of law objectively and fairly?
Okay, so I think the first thing is that my career, I've been a prosecutor, and the standard ethically that we have to fall under or to follow is higher. And so I think applying the law ethically, it's harder to have had a better preparation than having that as my job. But to be trusted in that position, I think comes down to whether or not you are trusted with powerful decisions.
Yeah.
That's the end of the day. It doesn't matter what your politics are. Doesn't matter how much money you have. Doesn't matter what you look like. Any factor.
Yeah.
It's like, can you be trusted to make good decisions for the community?
Yeah.
Not the decision that sometimes you want to make, but the just decision that applies the law. And I believe, and I am the best candidate because I've had to do that for 10 years.
Yeah.
So I'm on call 24/7, 365. I'm on, this is during the workday. Tonight at 10 p.m. I'll be on call.
Yeah.
Sometime this weekend I'll get a call about something, and I'll have to make a decision that takes into account the needs of the person being investigated from the police, the needs of the victims, the needs of the community at large, and I'll have to weigh that. And it might be 3 a.m. in my underwear.
Yeah.
Or it might be, we have a meeting, let's come in on Monday and talk this out. It might be that.
Yeah.
But you have to be good at making those decisions. I'm trusted by my boss, the district attorney, to make those decisions on the hardest cases.
Yeah.
I'm trusted by our law enforcement agencies. I'm trusted by other community leaders to come in and make those decisions. And the best thing that I can argue about is my track record.
Yeah.
I've been making those decisions for years. I've been figuring out in the city, for example, with shootings. We needed to do something about that. That was kind of going crazy a couple years ago. And the easiest answer was, everybody who gets caught with a gun, put them in jail. That's the simplest answer. That would make it safer on one level. Would that make our community better? Probably not.
Yeah.
And it was using all the things at hand to carve out who are the people that, as I call them, that are trigger pullers versus, and this is just a sad fact, African Americans in the city are, if you're a teenager, you're more likely to end up with a gun than a white person in Northeast, for example.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, just because you end up with that gun does not mean you're a bad kid, that you need to be grouped in with all the other people that are taking guns, not because they think they're cool because they're 17, but because they want to pull the trigger.
Yeah.
And carving out that distinction using everything we have, intelligence from the police, using their prior records, using our discretion, and carving out which kids can we work with here versus which kids, I'm not mad at them, but can we maybe not work with?
Yeah.
And they're too dangerous for the community. I've been doing that for 5 years now, and as I've been doing that, I'm proud to say we've been getting those decisions right. My favorite thing is not, it's horrible when a kid goes to state prison. My favorite parts are when I'm like, I'm going to give this kid a break. I'm a little nervous about it, but I think my instinct is this kid's right.
Yeah.
And then I forget about them. And then I run
You're
into them
vindicated.
somewhere, and it's like, they've been good for like 3 years.
Yeah.
No issues. No cops called me and said, this is going on. And it's just, that is one of the best feelings, because you're like, we were able to carve out a way to make the community safe while still being aggressive where we needed to be.
Yeah, and when having faith in people actually pays off in your vindicated. And as I mentioned in a previous episode, I mean, shootings in Erie City have gone down. So year over year, there's seen a decrease.
You target kids with guns, you're going to throw everybody in a net, and you're going to catch a lot of kids who aren't that bad.
Yeah.
You target trigger pullers. They've shown you're willing to pull the trigger, you're willing to put people in danger, and that's kind of the line we've drawn, and we think it's worked. And it's been me working with Erie Police, working with other people in my office, other departments. So it's been a team effort, but we're all pretty proud of it.
Yeah.
And it is not won by any means. It's going to be a constant thing, but we
it's
do
never
feel,
won. Yeah.
We do feel progress has been made, and now we can start to target some of the younger kids, not to go to jail, but to say, hey, you're on our radar now. What are we doing to get you off this track?
Yeah.
And it might not be, take a kid who's going to be a felon and say, well, you're going to be a valedictorian of a college. It's how do we get you to be on a slightly better track?
Yeah.
And we've been working, in different systems to try to do that.
Yeah. But it takes a lot of effort and a lot of care and a lot of actual investment, as opposed to what you said, lumping people together. I love that answer. How do you believe that the personal views of a candidate for a judgeship on this court towards other people, how their worldview, potential biases, have the potential to impact the work they do on the bench?
Yeah, well, so I'll say what I kind of say when we're picking a jury, right? People come in and they're like, I know I can't be on the jury, or I have this opinion about how the system should work.
Yeah,
I can't be on the jury, and it's like that's not gonna. It's eerie. First of all, you can't just know somebody and get off the jury. Then every person would get off the jury. But what we say is, look, every human being has biases.
Yep.
Every human being has opinions. Every human being has prejudices. If you're saying you don't, you're lying to yourself.
Yeah.
You have them, 100%. It's not denying their existence. It's how aware are you of them, and are you constantly self-evaluating?
Yeah.
And so I think that is incredibly important. And that's something wading into the job I've waded into, and the cases I've had to handle, and the autopsy rooms, for example, and saying, is this influencing? I'm upset right now when I see this. And then a week later, is this influencing my decisions? I got to take a step back. And if I'm sure it is on some way.
Yeah.
And then saying, well, how am I monitoring to make sure my decision making is consistent? That I am consistently doing, because my instincts will slightly shift one way or another, and getting them back in direction, or being aware. My instinct is a little bit this way, and I need to make decisions that take that into account.
Yeah.
And I think that level of self-awareness is the biggest thing you need in the framework of your question.
Yeah.
You need to come in with that self-awareness and say, I have opinions. I'm going to set those aside, and I'm going to give these people in front of me a fair shake.
Yeah. And I mean, is there any element of that that's attached to your pride and your work ethic, or your personal, the standards you hold yourself to? Does that make sense?
So I think, as I said, decision making is the most important part.
Yeah.
You can be trusted with the decisions that matter in our community. I think to be a good judge at the end of the day, you have to take your job seriously, and you have to be ready to invest the time. As I said, I've been working on call 24/7, 365. I'll give an example of a case from last December. There was a murder. A teenager was killed.
Okay.
I was home alone with my son. My wife was working second shift at St. Vincent's. They asked me to come in. I don't get paid for coming in.
Yeah.
The cops asked, of course, and it's dead. Tina, I'm coming in.
Yeah.
And then I realized my toddler was only like 8, or I guess year plus when this happened.
Yeah.
15 months. I can't just go in anymore.
Right.
I need a babysitter. So I actually had to pay a babysitter and lose money to go in, but it wasn't even a question because of course you're going to go in. And then I was there till midnight, 1 a.m. working, and they were doing the work. I'm helping them make decisions behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And that level of commitment is something that I think anyone who's ever worked with me at any job knows I'm bringing that level of commitment to my job.
Yeah.
And I think that matters a lot because it's, I think on some level, people view the judge as a way to step out of practice and then just be able to relax a little bit. Sure, am I excited if I win to not get calls at 3 a.m.?
Yeah.
Absolutely. But I am excited to bring that level of commitment to various different tracks that we can get cases on to try to make the system work better for everybody in the community.
Got it. And I kind of want to talk about temperament. Like, what role do you feel temperament has in this position? Do you think it's important, and why are you the candidate with the best temperament?
So I think temperament is huge, and so I am, as anyone who played men's league basketball with me, which is a good chunk of people in Erie at some point, knows I am incredibly competitive.
Okay.
And I will not back down, and I'll fight on every case, but or on every game or play or whatever. But and I'm like that in court too. You fight, of course you do. But I think temperament is part of being able to fight well also, and saying this defense attorney, I don't know, he's all over like I'm being mad at him. And it happened in a case I did recently. But you walk out and you still get a beer with the guy at the end of the day because he's doing his job, and as long as people are striking fair, clean blows against your case, you respect them. And that doesn't mean that you are always nice in the courtroom to them,
right?
But you treat them with respect. And I think the breeding of a courtroom with respect starts with the judge.
Yeah.
And if the judge is saying, hey, I expect both sides to try to win, like a basketball referee. I expect both sides to try to win this game.
Yeah.
But we'll be playing with the rules and we'll be treating each other with respect.
Yeah.
And then that isn't shown though through one decision or one day. It's how you treat people over the course of a year, 5 years, 10 years. And I do believe I've shown that the most, that the people who deal with me, they sometimes are mad at me at the end of the day, but they were treated with respect, and I didn't put the hood over anybody's eyes and try to trick them. It was, this is what I'm going to try to do. Here's what I'm going to try to do. And then I know we're going to fight on it, but I want to be above board. And so I do think my interacting with people in very conflicting situations has given me a lot of patience. Yeah. And I also respect the judges that have shown me grace, and that has been a huge lesson, especially when I was younger and I'd get feistier in the courtroom. They'd show me the grace, and the lesson that I took away from that, and it took me a year or two to learn it, was treat people like they're the best person they are, even when they're behaving like they're not their best. And so that's the way I've generally treated people I deal with in the courtroom, victims or whoever comes in, or the other side.
Okay, so kind of moving into a few questions here towards the end. What is your favorite Supreme Court case law?
And actually, my favorite case is not a Supreme Court case. It's actually from the 19th century in England. It's the first case I read in law school. Okay. It's the Queen v. Dudley and Stevens.
Oh, wow.
And it had to do with cannibalism.
Oh.
It's the first case I read and I was like, I thought my professor was brilliant, then I realized a lot of American law schools do that. And
oh my God.
Because it is under British maritime law, if you're on a naval ship, you can't commit the crime of cannibalism.
Okay.
When you're shipwrecked or something along those lines.
Okay. And
so the rule of the sea was, amongst sailors, if you're stuck there, you have to eat. Yeah, you draw lots, but that was deemed illegal. So it's a case where that happens.
Oh no!
And the sailors eat. They end up eating one of their deceased other sailors.
This is really sunny, everybody.
But then they come back, then they get picked up, and they come back to England. Like, yeah, of course we ate the guy. Like, what are we supposed to do? We were gonna die. And then they got charged with I can't remember the crime, not murder, but some
desecration of a
yeah. And the penalty was death. And they went to trial, and they got convicted. And if the reason it's the first case is because it's like, our takeaway is, look, this is all heavy, dark stuff.
Yeah.
But like, you can't really fault somebody for doing that at the end of the day. And I think that's one of the reasons it's taught in American law schools is the rules are the rules, and we have to follow them.
Yeah.
But you also, as a judge, need to take a step back, or as a practitioner at that point, and say, what is the goal here? What are we doing to make society better? Like, does this make sense? And so there's a lot of other stuff they want you to learn in that case about how the judge manipulated the process to get where it wanted to be because he was trying to do other things. But at the end of the day, the judge found them guilty but commuted their sentence.
Yeah.
And so he was like, you're guilty of doing it, but you're not going to be hung or whatever they did.
Yeah.
And so that was the first case I ever read. And that stuck with me because it really, if we're not getting the right result here, is the system working? And I don't think anyone really feels if they hang a guy who had to do that to stay alive.
Yeah.
In that setting, they were like that. That doesn't seem appropriate. No one can really legally explain it, but
the context of the situation.
Yeah. And that you always have to be aware of, is your result making sense when you take a step back? And that's something I've kind of continuously thought about as I'm making decisions. Like, if I have to explain this decision in a press conference to the county at large,
right?
Are they going to be like, oh, that makes sense? Are they going to be like, what the heck is he doing?
Yeah.
And it's like that is a good guiding principle that I learned from that case before I even knew what type of law I was going to do.
Wow. Okay, so to be clear for our listeners and our viewers, Jeremy Lightner, you are not endorsing cannibalism.
I am not. No.
We are not endorsing cannibalism on this podcast. Read between the lines.
I am endorsing reading all of the Wikipedia pages about the cannibalism cases, though. There's Wikipedia pages out there, and I wanted to make sure I could remember the case name, so I looked it up, and then I ended up going down the same path again, like 2 nights ago, of seeing all the different cases that handled that issue.
I feel like I'm about to do the same thing. I did not expect that answer.
Yeah,
but
sorry.
It's a good one. Dark, but good. Fluffy, what is your favorite courtroom law movie? Mine is Legally Blonde.
Mine is not Legally Blonde. Hillary Hoffman, who I work with at the DA's office, she has a poster from Legally Blonde in her office. Mine is My Cousin Vinny.
Oh, I've not seen it.
Oh, so look, I've done 100 trials.
Okay.
When I go, and my wife loves watching like courtroom stuff, and I go in there, and it's like, this is all dumb. This is none of this is how it works. My Cousin Vinny is on point. It's like, oh, that's a good cross-examination question. Like, I never see that. I never think that in some, run-of-the-mill movie.
Yeah.
But My Cousin Vinny is a really good example of how long it takes. Like, I've thought about this a lot. They ask a question because it's relevant. How long does it take you to, I think, grill some eggs?
Yeah.
Is a question of a witness. Is relevant to the case at hand. And it's the point, anything can be relevant if you have the right context.
Yep.
And so that, if him trying to fight it was Joe Pesci trying to fight for 2 New York kids who were down in Alabama and got charged with a murder. Okay. And he was in over his head, and he goes down there and he doesn't wear the right clothes, and it's hilarious. But the actual law in the movie, I mean, it's not perfect, but it's pretty good. Yeah. And I really enjoy that movie.
Are you saying that the hair care law in Legally Blonde doesn't do it for you? To be clear,
I plead the fifth on that.
Okay, fair enough. I'm talking Legally Blonde 1, by the way, not Red, White, and Blonde, the sequel.
I did not know there was a sequel.
They're making a third one, too.
I don't think I will be seeing either the sequel or the third one, and I don't think I'll ever watch Legally Blonde again.
I'm holding you in contempt of my tastes courtroom. If that's I don't think I did that right, but
the point was made.
Okay, great. You say potato. It's fine. Wrapping up, what do you love about Erie?
So I grew up in Erie, and I actually moved. I grew up by Liberty Plaza, and I moved to Fairview for high school. Okay. Which I did not want to do, but I never, I was 15. I didn't have a choice. Yeah. I loved growing up in our community, and I didn't wasn't sure. I moved away. I actually went to college in Eastern Pennsylvania. Then I lived in New Zealand for a while. Then
Wow.
Then I lived in Illinois. And when I got done with Illinois, it's like all these places are nice, but they're not like a community that is both a city and feels like a small town.
Yeah.
And coming back to Erie, like we have a Philharmonic, but every time I go to the grocery store, no matter what grocery store it is, I run into somebody I know.
Yeah.
And so the size of our community is right in that you can always go meet new people or find new things to do.
Yeah.
Like I just saw that, I don't know if I'm going to be able to, but 1020 is doing something with like an Edgar Allan Poe speakeasy.
I did see something about that.
I don't know what it is, but
Yeah.
I was like, I kind of wanted to go to this. And also, then I'm 5 minutes from my parents. I can work downtown at the courthouse and be at the beach 10 minutes after work.
Yeah.
It's like Erie is a very good combination of big city and small town. And we're fighting the good fight. People that are not me are fighting the good fight for our community. You're probably going to interview a lot of them.
Yeah.
But I think we're making progress in making the core of our city better and the surrounding neighborhoods.
Yeah.
That is going to make it's on the upswing, not the downswing.
Where can people find you online, and how can they support your campaign?
So our website is www.jeremylightnerforjudge.com.
Okay.
And then we have a Facebook and an Instagram under Jeremy Lightner for Judge or something under that fashion.
Okay.
So that's the place that you can get updates or things like that. So those are the places to go.
Okay, cool. I'll make sure to tag those pages so we have the right place. But
Thank you.
yeah, awesome. It was really nice speaking with you. Thanks for coming in.
This has been really pleasant.
Yeah, this has been awesome. A lot of great answers, and even though you don't like Legally Blonde, it was really, really great hearing a lot about what you have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.